All right, YouTube, this is Mr. Mean coming at you this Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on the 8th of July. I've got some esteemed guests here. We are talking about That RPG. Yes, this is a segment I try to do once a month where we talk about That RPG. And each one of us is going to talk about a different RPG. There'll be links down in the doobly-doo. If you want to pick it up, you can use my affiliate link. Doesn't cost you anything extra, and it makes me a couple of bucks for the channel, which go back into the channel. So as always, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Let's grow the Meanie Army, and let's get started with this. On my, well, it would be your right, my left, is the ominous, the effervescent gkanks, otherwise known as...
Justin Phillips, how you doing?
All right. Justin is one of my viewers, and he's supported the channel for quite a while, and I thought it would be interesting to get him on here. I've actually played a game with him online. I thought it'd be a lot of fun to get him on the channel, and he's going to talk about That RPG with us. And then below me, the awesome, the amazing, the bearded NKDotZip from Indie Publishing. Sir, how are you?
Only on Wednesdays.
Oh.
I don't know any other day.
That's right. He just grows it spontaneously. We watched. It was amazing. I grew a double chin.
5 o'clock shadow. It's how it is.
You're Italian, evidently, right?
Yeah.
All right. So as the usual format, and usual, I mean, we've only done this once before, but it was a lot of fun. We stayed up way too late. We talked a lot of shit. We're going to put links down in the doobly-doo for everybody. But we're going to start with gkanks. Justin, sir, what is That RPG that you brought?
All right, so when you tossed it at me, you said you got to pick one. You know, automatically I was going to go to the one I always default back to, which is probably my third RPG, which was 2nd edition D&D. I know all the others are cool, but I got to thinking about it, and what I really want to play again, and what got me started, is a classic from TSR, because what you have to remember is, you know, my parents were kind of conservative, and therefore D&D might have been evil, but this wasn't. I don't know if you guys have played it, but Star Frontier.
Yeah.
TSR's first ones. I don't have the box, which really makes me sad. But I do have the original dice. Take a look at these wonderful little tiny 10-sided dice. It's all the game came with. It was 10-sided rolls and percentile rolls, and you didn't even have a percentile dice. You picked red was your 10 spot, or blue was your 10 spot.
What year was that published?
Oh, I don't know. Let's look. I think it's 82, 83. It was 1983 was when Alpha Dawn came out.
Yeah.
And then the next year, I think Dawn, what is it called? Something Hawks? Starhawks or Nighthawks, spelled a K. And that was so cool. Because when we first played this, the first time I played it, I was at my best friend's house, and he's like, "You got to try this role-playing game thing." And so he's got that big map that came with it, because they always came with fold-out maps that are huge. And we create a character, and at that point I'm already hooked. I'm like, wow, I get to decide what he's like. And so I created like, I don't know if you remember the races. They had like 4 or 5 races. There's one called a Drow site. Basically, it's, remember Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo? That was what it was. It's this thing that can meld into different shapes and is basically gelatinous. And we're cruising along and jump out of the car, go into a building, jump back into the car. I mean, for a kid of 11, that was absolutely the most cool thing. And then the next year, they came out with that Nighthawks, which added space combat, shipboarding. We actually probably spent more time building ships with the shipbuilding rules. Because, I mean, there weren't a lot of games that let you do that before that, right?
Right.
Even I don't think Travelers did that. The only time I ever played Travelers, I was dead before my character was created.
That's why it's called Traveler. You had to travel to go make a new character.
Well, yeah, and then you get shot within 5 minutes of playing it, even if you survive that process.
Yeah.
And, I've lost a leg, now you get to hobble.
Hover chair.
This game really isn't deep. I don't know, have you guys played it?
Oh, yeah. I own it.
So this game really isn't what I'd call deep. but it is super fun. So for somebody who, if you look at any of the first edition D&D stuff, you can get so deep into esoteric garbage. But this was like a really good entry point, and even the expanded rules are, I think, 40 pages.
Right.
So, so you could really play with your imagination with it. It was a contemporary of, I think, what were the other ones they did? Gamma World, Top Secret.
Top Secret. Oh my God.
I think Top Secret was a little before that.
I think it was 82. I think.
Yeah.
But still a solid game.
Still, I mean, those were the things. They were coming out with those box sets that you could really get into. I dug up some of these. It's fantastic.
Was this your first role-playing game?
Ever Dangerous Sadar. And I'm not even sure you can ever even make out the piece, but, this was what you had. You didn't have miniatures. You didn't have...
Yeah, chits.
These. You had a little punch-out. Same thing you had with Avalon Hill, so it was up with the contemporaries of the time.
Yeah.
But, it was my very first. Again, because my folks were a little concerned that there were, we live in Michigan, and supposedly there were kids who played Dungeons and Dragons in the sewer, the tunnels under MSU, and somebody got killed, which that legend's like at every college at that point. Never happened anywhere, but every parent was sure that it did, and it was going to happen to their kid.
And that's like the alligators in the sewer, right?
Right. So I couldn't play D&D, but I could play this because they were okay with science fiction. So it was my first, and then on top of that, I mean, you see little hints of this in a lot of the other systems that are out there. When I played FASA's Star Trek, you saw a lot of the ship combat and the ship building systems that were much more refined, but you could see that those people had played Star Frontiers because they had stolen lots of different components from it. And I don't know, and you probably know more, I don't know too many science fiction role-playing games before Star Frontiers. Do you remember those, John?
No, I think...
I mean, maybe Travelers predates it?
I think Traveler does. It's because it's one of the very first. There was a lot of board chit-based games like Star Trek, and they had Fleet Command because I think it was West End Games, or I don't even remember the company, but they couldn't get the license to FASA. They couldn't get the license to Star Trek, so they called it Fleet Command, and it very much reminiscent of Star Frontiers with the spaceship combat and stuff, but it was geared, towards Star Trek. But they couldn't use Klingon, they couldn't use Romulan, because they didn't have the license. So and then
eventually FASA got the license, and they did do that whole series.
Yeah, and then those guys licensed it from FASA to make the ships, the pewter ships, back in the day, because pewter was good and you could gnaw on it, and there were no repercussions. Conrad, are you with us, Conrad?
I am.
Oh, buddy. Real quick, I'm going to interrupt gkanks. Conrad, tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, shit.
Well, we all know you shit. We all shit. Give us something different.
Conrad, lead editor for Shattered over at Indeed.
All right. So for those just joining us, like Conrad, Mr. Gkank, Justin, right, was telling us about his game. Hold up the book again.
Old classic.
Star Frontiers, old school. 1984, I think? 83, 84?
1983.
Yeah.
The first player's book has terrible art, and they decided to do a little better art for the expanded book.
Have you heard of Noble Knight Games? Have you heard of Noble Knight Games?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You might want to go on there and see. You might be able to pick up a boxed copy.
No, they have this on. You can get this on drive-through.
Right, but I mean a physical. Who wouldn't want a physical box copy, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I would love to have my original box.
So, all right. So what about that game shaped you or made you the gamer you are today?
Well, I mean, it was the first one that kind of opened my eyes, opened my my thoughts up to roleplay. I hadn't roleplayed before that. Everything was board games, and the board games then were kind of terrible. Although we had played some Avalon Hill, some games like, I don't remember if Access and Allies was out by then or not, but games like that.
Yeah.
But the really early Avalon Hills, which were extremely crunchy, and for when you're 10, you play that for an hour, even though it's a 7-hour game, and you're like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Right. Or you went down to the game store and you played with all the old geezers that were playing, World War II simulation, and you hung out for about an hour until you got burnt out, and then you went and, played with your Legos or something.
Hey, Legos are still cool.
I still have them, but I have a 3-year-old, so I have an excuse. They're all mine.
That's right. So, for me, it was just that idea of somebody telling a story and the rest of the players acting in that framework. Years later, as a lot of the games matured, it really was. It really became a lot of number crunching. First edition's a lot of number crunching too, but a lot of the third-party market or the non-D&D games, they became really crunchy, and now you see narrative games coming back. The rules are so light in this. Like I said, at total with the expansion, there might be 110 pages that you could possibly read. So you have to fill in there. I looked at the back real quick before we started. There are 10 monsters included, other than the 5 primary races. For you. So everything else you have to invent. So really, you've played some of those more recent games like Genesis, and those games that are just narrative driven, where they don't even have numbers on the dice; they just have symbols. Really drive the storytelling. So you do more than get my sword out and hit something as hard as I can with my +10 of this and my +7 of that. And so with this, there wasn't that number depth, so you really had to just tell the story. And we told a lot of really stupid stories at 11 and 12.
And nothing wrong with that.
Haven't we all?
Hey,
I had one guy who he was fantastic at, and he still is. He's when you're not there, he plays the bard. That's his primary character, and so he's just fantastic at storytelling. And when you're playing, you don't play any hidden role games, because he'll totally fool everybody. He'll run the table, but as a storyteller, he's fantastic. And he was for a kid. He was fantastic. He's still pretty good at it. So that was just really what got me into it. And I tended to gravitate more towards story. Even now, if I'm doing second edition, second edition has a million rules that you could. And you get all the supplements, which contradict the other rules. And so really the way I do it is that kind of grew how I play the game as a DM. It's really about, the rules are there as a loose framework. And if you like a particular rule, you want a barbarian who can do such and such, sure, we'll roll that dice for you. But when I have players do stuff, if they're doing it in character, and it's really in character, I let them get away with absolutely ludicrous crud, because it moves the story along, because it really puts the pieces together, plays the character, and that's kind of what I feel happened with this. I'm probably remembering it more fondly than it really has.
Doesn't matter. The point was you had fun, and it's obviously to this day it means something to you, which is the whole point of this little show. So we're gonna move it on next. I think we're gonna put. I think last time we went with NK, so we're gonna jump over to Conrad, put him on the spot. I know he doesn't have videos.
Yeah, I don't have video right now. Sorry.
What's the game? What's that RPG? That's the moniker we're going with.
So I actually mentioned it last time in one of my honorable mentions, because I didn't realize we were going to make this a regular thing. It's kind of the Only War. It has to be. Only War.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I sadly don't have a copy of that to show off, but I can dig up it.
Yeah.
I put mine away.
I didn't think I was going to hop on.
I have Death Watch, and I have Blackguard, and I have
Rogue Trader, probably.
Rogue Trader. I have Only War. Dark Heresy. The Only War is put away. It's the only one that's not on this shelf, because it's the one I like the least. Sorry.
Really? Well, it's your mistake.
Right. Everyone's allowed to be wrong, right?
In the know. Only War is set in the Warhammer 40k universe. And one of my things about any franchise is the selling point, like having a good model, having a good theme. And there's, for Warhammer 40k, is in the grim, dark future of the 41st millennium, there is only war. You can't beat that. Like that.
It's a good tagline.
You don't have to tell me anything else. I know what's up. Like,
yeah,
it's such a good line, and there's so few stories out there that are told that have a line that captures everything in the opening like that. If you can do that, it does world and does everything for you. Hey, what's up, bud? I'm talking to some dudes about some games.
Hey, little man.
Yeah, that's Shepard.
Hey, Shepard. It's all good, man. My little guy does it to me too.
Yeah.
That's their job.
So Only War pits you, the players, as members of the Imperial Guard. So basically, you're Space Marines of just the shittiest. Like, this is Russian-style Zerg tactics. You are expected to go out and die for the Imperium, because there's trillions of people at this point. It's all across the galaxy. You go out there and you're supposed to go toe-to-toe with orcs and psychic Eldar and all these other things, and I just love that. I always love taking people who are supposed to be the bottom rung shit tier as you're like, all right, guys, let's go fucking kick some rocks and shoot some dudes. Like,
just a dude, no superpowers, no super powered armor, no special psychic power. Mm-hmm. You are a grunt. You are Alpha 227146 Pluto Company Bravo 9. You're just a schmuck in the crowd.
Nah, man. I don't even know if I'd waste that much breath to be like, yo, private. Like, let's go.
That's right. Dirtbag. Let's move.
You're not going to be alive long enough for me to remember your name or your number.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
If you really want to get a good taste of how it should be run, in my opinion, look up All Guardsman Party. Easy. It's a wonderful story told by a player in a campaign, and the GM does an amazing job. The way he does character creation is he tells them all to roll up like 10 characters, and they're like, what the fuck? So he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. So they all roll up characters, and they start playing. He's like, okay, you're on this planet, you're in the trench, orcs are coming to attack you, hold the line. They're like, okay, they get overrun by orcs and die, and roll new characters, and hold the same trench, and get overrun by orcs and die, and roll new characters, and hold the same trench, and actually stop the orcs. And they're like, all right, time to advance, or I shoot you in the back of the head. And they advance, and they run into orcs, and they die. And it keeps going like that. They end up playing some artillery then. They end up playing, covering retreat. They push off the planet. And basically this entire, I forget how they measure, battalion or...
Platoon?
I forget the measurement. No. The entire regiment. Sorry, there it is.
Oh, regiment. Okay. That's a lot of dudes.
Just gets annihilated. So yeah, it's thousands of dudes just get completely obliterated. And I think at the end, after all of the, because like
it was like they would take all the injured ones that survived whatever the encounter was.
The 12 people that survived from the regiment are declared officially dead, and then he recruits them into the basically secret police of the Imperium. It's a fun little story.
And then they pulled out the Dark Heresy campaign, and that's how they developed their Dark Heresy characters, was by playing.
He transitions.
Yeah, it sounds almost like a DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classic funnel, where you make 10 characters, or you make 4 on average, and then if one of them's lucky enough to survive, he becomes first level. You start with a chicken.
Yeah.
If you've never played DCC, that was my honorable mention for this episode. But I got something a little more special for me. But cool. So you love the game. Cubicle 7 owns the rights to it now. Fantasy Flight lost it. And so you could still buy the original book, the PDF. But it's just rebranded by Cubicle 7 is all. It's still the same rules and everything that Fantasy Flight did.
Okay.
No, they are, because they came out with Warhammer 40K, the RPG, which covers only war. It covers everything, I think, except chaos. I think it's a
Really?
horrible mechanic. I don't like it. I don't like the look of the books. It's very cartoony. It's not grimdark. Fantasy Flight did a great job of conveying the feeling of hopelessness. And no matter what you were playing, whether you were playing Crusade or you were playing, Dark Heresy, it managed to convey that feeling that the universe.
Such a dread.
Yeah, you're fucked. No matter what you do, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And
So go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just saying, no matter what you do, it's never going to be good enough. And the one that I have the most experience with is Dark Heresy, and I love it because in the GM advice it says, you're working for an Inquisitor, which is like the uber powerful. Those guys have like a lot of sway in the Imperium.
Yeah, it's literally the Spanish Inquisition. They can do whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And you work for one of these guys. So, initially you're making your character and you're like, I'm the shits. I work for like the super honcho dude. I'm going to get away. I'm going to be a naughty god is basically the way. And then at the end of it, it tells you, let your players know they cannot invoke the Inquisition's name. And you're like, well, what the? So I'm on this planet with a butter knife, and there's chaos hordes running everywhere, and I have to prove that the governor of this hive is in league with chaos, but I have no support. Gotcha. Yeah. You're back to being, only war. You're fucked. So it's a great percentile-based system.
D100.
D100 percentile, very brutal, very unforgiving, and I highly recommend making multiple characters for a camp. Don't get attached to any one character. Your best starting percentile will be probably, if you're really lucky and the dice gods are kind, will be you might be above. You might be at a 55% to accomplish something, and that's if all the dice, land in your favor during character creation, and you take the right edges and stuff or benefits
55% is
like that's really high for a character. A new 35 is average. Yeah, 35 to 45 is average. 45 being on the high end. So great game, man, Conrad. Great game. If you ever run it and you need a player online, I will sit in.
Doesn't that kind of make it more fun, though? I mean, I find I enjoy characters that are flawed more than I enjoy super characters.
Well, it's not even that they're flawed. It's just you're useless.
I know.
Like, the universe is against you, and I love it. Like, if I played the last time I played D&D as a player, not GM, it was a survival campaign. So it's like, you guys have to track your food, your water, your rest. I'm into that. Like, I'm into, hardcore, let's do this character death on session 1, let's go. Like, I'm all about it. So,
you'd love my games.
I died on session 4 of that one because I did something stupid.
I love killing characters, especially if they make dumb mistakes. Yeah.
So only war, obviously, because percentile is a bit crunchier, especially if you get vehicles involved, which of course we did. But yeah, I think what's biggest to me about it is just it's stuck with me. We did play by post, and we made it maybe 40 posts. And the reason it hasn't continued is actually my fault. Just life and everything swamping me. Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, NK.
It's been his favorite character to write.
Hands down, my best time of my life playing an RPG was in that play-by-post.
And I'm glad. I think a lot of people don't realize how valuable the speed of play-by-post is. Like, it's nice to have a time to sit down and be like, let's all get along, let's play now. But to feel that the time in between with play-by-post really helps people develop their role-playing. Really helps them sit down and be like, okay, what would I actually do with this character instead of being put on the spot? A lot of people aren't as good at that.
Right.
And so play-by-post helps people kind of level out.
And I've seen a lot of
where I got into role-playing is before I've ever picked up, dice. I was playing play-by-posts on.
The narrative.
I think I started at 12 or 13 on Neopets, and then I graduated to Gaia Online.
Yeah. Ooh, that's one I haven't heard in a long time. Yeah,
right?
Narrative role play. Games like you said, play by post has that luxury of time, whereas when you're sitting around a table chucking dice, you don't always have that time, especially if you're a younger person. Because let's face it, as we get older, our cognitive powers slow down, and so. But we also have a plethora of life experiences to draw upon. When you're 16 or 17, I mean, the most you have, the experience you have is looking at your dad's nudie books and spending way too much time in the bathroom by yourself. That's really all you have to draw on. So putting someone on the spot, what do you do, can be tough. But if you've got that time and you're sitting behind your keyboard or your typewriter, if you're old like me and you remember typewriters, because I used one, it's an awesome thing. And it also gives you, especially for Conrad and NK, because they're in the industry, it's that I call it the fountain of youth. It's that regenerative power that you get because you're focusing left of center. You know what I mean? So you're not, oh God, I got to write this chapter on, and I'm going to throw this in their face because it's shattered, air combat, and now you've got, and you're just brainstorming and you're hitting a wall and you're fucked. There's no, you can't think of anything, and then you go, oh wait, Conrad said it was my turn in Only War, and my private was firing his last carbine, and it was out of juice. What do I do? So you've switched gears, you've refreshed your mind, you're thinking of something different, and now after you've belted out 5 or 6 paragraphs, you come back to airship combat and you go, oh yeah, and it's just that it's that mental floss that we all need to keep us going. And I think I agree with you, Conrad. Play-by-post games do not get enough credit.
No,
absolutely not.
They really don't. And I was going to bring that up when we brought up Star Frontiers and we were talking about that, like that kind of like low barrier to entry into storytelling it's something that always attracted me, but I don't think I ever really truly experienced it in that context until I played that Only War game. And I'm a writer, obviously. I helped write a tabletop RPG, but I'm also shut up.
No pressure.
I also, I'm also working on 3 novels and all these other things, and that wall that you're talking about is right on, and I feel that so personally because I get into that all the time. And then when Conrad was running his Only War game, like I stopped dead working on all the things that mattered, and I was like, it was a nice break, and I was just hitting F5 on my keyboard like every 10 minutes to see if somebody had a new post. And I was at work, like troubleshooting someone's computer on one screen and then had it up on the other just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
Dude, that was like my adolescence in a nutshell. F5, man. Waiting for play-by-post.
Well, I remember I'm a big fan of. I was on the BBSs, so I would play World of Darkness on the server, and F5 waiting for the chat room to update. So like and finding that my celerity didn't work, or whatever, and wee hours of the morning, and I had to get up and go to work the next day, and then be sitting at work thinking, wow, that was so much fun. What am I going to do tonight? Because we were,
or even once fucking cell phones finally had decent internet, just like being at school or like in between classes or whatever, like checking your phone, being like, did anyone post? And you see there's like 3 new posts.
You joke.
These are so good.
You joke, but I had
what am I gonna do next?
I had a T-Mobile sidekick
before you even get home.
Yep. I had a T-Mobile sidekick.
You're like, oh shit, hold on.
I had a T-Mobile sidekick. It was that phone that was. It would slip. The screen would flip around, and it had a QWERTY keyboard underneath, and I was playing on that. While I was at work. I was a customs agent on the border.
I'm going to show my age a little bit here, but I remember the whole PBS thing and waiting on FidoNet for play-by-email. Well, posted on PBS. I don't know if you know what FidoNet is, but FidoNet connected a whole bunch of BBSs. And 2 times a day, your BBS would call out to the network and get all the posts. So I was pressing F5. I was hoping that the modem was open so I could dial up, and because you get on a BBS.
No, the best was when you were trying to connect, and then you'd hear the click, click, man, Mom, get off the phone, because it was the only line we had in the house, right? So
Did you kill your connection when you're downloading that really grainy piece of pornography from the site?
oh yeah, I remember those. Yeah. Why do you think I wear glasses now? Why do you think I wear glasses now?
Kids nowadays, they just don't appreciate the
That's right. How can you type one-handed? Oh, it's easy. So, all right, Conrad. Well, man, that's good, because that harkens back to last session. I think it was almost a month ago when we talked about Dogs in the Vineyard and everything, and then you brought up Only War. So that's really cool, and it is a good game. I personally am not a fan of what Cubicle 7 has done with the whole franchise.
Oh yeah, no, that sounds like it's trash. I have a copy of the
you know what? I'm not gonna shit talk it, because I don't think I need to. Just go on Drive Through RPG and read the reviews. I mean, if people talking about it.
Let someone else shit talk it for you.
Exactly.
Last note about it, and this goes for all of Warhammer 40k, obviously, is just it's really important to marry mechanics with storytelling, and that's something Warhammer 40k does incredibly well. Simple things like they don't have caffeinated beverages anymore; they have recaffeinated beverages, right? You don't whip out a cup of coffee; you whip out a cup of recaf, right? Like already you've established a piece of history, right? Like we've graduated, we're already inured to caffeine. We have to double down, right? Like just the way they put those little touches on everything.
The recycled air in the hive. The recycled air in the hive complex that people that live below ground level have never breathed fresh air.
Yes.
Never. And they talk about it, and like the water is basically from moisture collectors, because they're underneath the earth and they're giving off heat, but the earth is cold, so it creates moisture, and they have these evaporators that grab all the moisture out of the air, and that's the water they drink. And then when they take a piss, it gets recycled. And I think there was one piece of fiction I was reading, and he said something to the effect of, I'm drinking the water that my grandfather pissed out. And you're just like, okay, that's pretty dark. So yeah, it's a great.
No, it's efficient, sir.
It's efficient. Yeah, I stand corrected. It is. I'm a huge fan of Necromunda. I have the newest version of the board game. I just got an airbrush, and one of the things I want to put to task is airbrushing all that terrain and getting some games in with a good buddy of mine. So yeah, I'm a huge Warhammer fanboy when it comes to the fiction. I've read a lot of the books. They're fantastic. Gavin Thorpe, Gavin Thorpe. There's a whole bunch. Too many to list right now. But gkanks or NK, what's that RPG?
So I'm taking it a little closer to my roots. Not exactly my roots, but my first time playing was in 3.5, and I too had conservative parents, and they found out I played a session of 3.5 one time. It was an amazing experience. I was having so much fun. I wanted to kill a zombie, and the GM let me put a flask of holy water on the end of my arrow to do it. It was a great time. But my parents found out. I'm still not quite sure how, and I got grounded for a month. And look at me now. But close to that, one of the things that I've never liked about D&D and a lot of the D&D adjacent titles like Pathfinder and such are casters. The guys on the Shattered development team know me all too well that I hate casters with a passion. And it's not the idea of them, it's just I hate managing that ridiculous spell list. I don't want to do it. And the first time I ever loved playing a caster was in Iron Kingdom.
Nice.
And this is not the third edition D&D variant that I think they put out first.
Yep.
This is the self-contained copy
by Privateer Press.
Yeah. And I've always enjoyed the miniatures. I never actually played. I was a 40K miniature guy for a long time, but I love the aesthetic. And as we talked about last time, that's something that always draws me to these books. But one of the things, once I got into this and I actually played it, one of the things that I loved so much was the simplicity of the casting. It was just you had a list, which unfortunately you just can't seem to get away from. But it was very simple, and you only had to pay points to cast a spell or whatever it was. It wasn't like you didn't have these like somatic components or material components or all these different odds and ends that you needed to manage, like you sometimes see in versions of D&D. Depending on how hardcore your GM's going to be, of course.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing I do. Every time I run a second edition campaign, because second edition's real particular that way, is I remove so much of that stuff. I just assume you're going to have, unless you're talking something super esoteric, but other than that, because you're right, otherwise it's a slog.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really simply you just spend points or you acquire fatigue in some cases, and different spells have different fatigue costs, and that's all there is to it. And you roll your dice and you're done. Real simple, really quick. It didn't interrupt combat at all. I'm sure you guys have had the experience, but I can't tell you how many times I've sat down for session 1 and there was some guy playing a wizard who didn't have a spell list picked out.
Oh my god! Every game,
waiting for him to pick out his freaking spell list.
You're fine. You don't get to play your spells. You didn't pick them out. It means you didn't prep them for the day. We're done. I don't have time for that. You guys.
If
I'm GMing the game, you get one mulligan. If you get to the next day, you're like, oh, I forgot to switch my spells. Well, then you forgot to switch your spells, sir.
There's a reason I'm called Mr. Mean. In my Pathfinder game, we have a spellcaster, and
I'm wondering about the story, so go ahead.
He doesn't know his spells, and love the guy to death, but he doesn't know his spells, and so I skip him. You're fumbling. You're obviously you're not good in combat, and maybe that's it is what it is. And I've done that in a D&D game with a good friend of mine. His wife was playing a spellcaster, and she plays because her husband's playing. And I'm like, that's okay, but when you come to my game, you bring your dice, you come to play. And if you're not ready to play, then you're not playing. It's that simple. So I will skip you. I have no problems with that,
I don't think an inexperienced person should play spellcasters in most systems.
And I agree, except I've run so many games at conventions where, I've had pre-gens, and I'll do like the spells on a 3x5 card or something, and I'll give them to the player. And I have a lot of esoteric RPGs and weird games. Iron Kingdoms is a really good one. It's one of my favorites. I call it analysis paralysis. And like you said, Justin, it's new players. It's too much. It's the 16-year-old, no life experience, doesn't have a clue. You give it to like a 35-year-old guy, and he's going to look for, like, if it's a combat game, he's going to look for the combat spells. If it's a social game, he's going to look for the social spells. But inevitably, you always get that one player that's sitting there going, "Oh, it's my turn. Yeah, I'll cast. Hold on. And I'm like, done. Move on. You wasted your time. You had 4 to 7 other turns to figure out what you were going to do, and you didn't do it. So obviously you're not interested. And if you don't want to play in my game, if you don't want to give me and the other players the consideration that we're giving you, then maybe you should find another game. And I don't mean to be mean, but I'm Mr. Mean. I mean, come on."
You can tell how experienced a player is by how creatively he can use Featherfall.
Exactly. And you know what? I will not penalize a player.
Move Earth.
Yeah, I will not penalize a player for not knowing his spells. I will penalize a player for not being prepared. I will penalize a player for not taking the time to learn. If we're 6 gaming sessions into a game and you've been playing the same character, you damn well better know what your character can and can't do after 6 sessions. I think that's more than fair enough. But some people don't, and they don't take it seriously. To me, sitting around that table with my friends, like doing this right here, if you don't put enough consideration and enough effort into it to take it somewhat serious, at least in the aspect of, John's taken all this time to put a scenario together. Maybe I should pay attention. Maybe I should come, and I'm lucky enough to have a group right now in my Pathfinder games, if we ever get to play face to face again, that they are excited about the next game. I'm walking them out the door, like, guys, it's 1:00 in the morning. You have to go, get out, and I'm pushing them out. They're going, yeah, and we could do this and we could do that, So that is awesome. But I can't tell you how many games I've run where the players are like, oh, I don't know what Featherfall does, Dude, you had 6 turns. You had 6 other players' turns to read it in the book. I've given you a copy of the spell. I try to make it as easy as I can. You're obviously not interested. You want to play something else. And then, no. I love the mage.
As a GM, when you've got those players that sit on their phones.
Yeah.
We're in the age of cell phones. So pretty much everyone hops on their phone at some point during a 4-hour session. I get that. When they're on it the whole time.
Yeah.
And then it comes their turn, they're like, wait. So who's closest to me?
Yeah.
I told you.
One of my players, he doesn't have any of the
theater of the mind if you don't use your mind.
One of my players doesn't have the physical books, so he has an iPhone. He has one of the big, I think it's an iPhone 10, and he has the books on there. So his nose is dug in there, but at least I can say with him, he's looking up a rule, he's looking up a spell, he's trying to confirm something for one of the other players. He's very engaged. And the funny part is he's a super quiet, reserved guy. Like, he doesn't speak unless spoken to. But then when he gets into the role playing, brother, he's all in. And it's really awesome. And it's very gratifying to me as a GM to see him do that. And then one of my other players never played a role playing game before in his life. This is Pathfinder's the first game he's ever played. And he's like jonesing on. He's like, oh, what? He's a super busy guy. He's got a lot of stuff. He's got two or three young kids. So I don't get on him for not knowing what his character can do. But when it comes game night, man, he's got the book in front of him. He's refreshing. He's made cheat sheets he's playing a champion in Pathfinder, which is basically a paladin. And he's got cheat sheets where he's typed up a bunch of stuff. And I mean, it's all crumpled and it's thrown into a backpack. He's so disorganized it's not even funny. But to see him get excited when his dwarf champion does something is all the payment I need, for running a game. So yeah, totally get it.
Josh, what else did you like about the Iron Kingdoms?
So the big thing for me is, and this ultimately led to how we developed some of Shattered, but for all the good that classes can do, I love getting choice. And Iron Kingdoms was kind of like my first introduction to like, whoa, you can do that? Like, I can have options? What?
No two characters are the same.
And so, you go through and you get to pick, 2 professions, and one is like your main profession, the other one's almost like your hobby or your side gig or something like that. But because of that, because you can pick 2, and as you level up, you can pick to advance skills from either one and get abilities from either one. Your opportunities at replayability and having new character types and new combos and stuff like that is a lot higher than anything I'd experienced up to that point. And it blew my mind. Like I said, I had never played a game that did that before, so seeing that was like a real eye-opening experience.
It's a great game. It's a lot of fun. It's very intuitive, and the nice part is if you play the miniatures game, you already know the mechanics.
It uses basically
the same mechanics. Yeah. And if you play the RPG,
in the back of the book,
yeah,
they've got trying to flip to it here real quick. They've even got like template markers in the back of the book. So if you wanted to scan this and print it out, you'd actually have stuff to use with your Iron Kingdoms miniatures, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I wish 40K Roleplay did that, because with all of the miniatures out there for that world, you'd think, the marriage of the two would be just a given, but it isn't.
Yeah.
That's Games Workshop and holding their license tight to their chest.
Well, I think you're going to start seeing them do some of that stuff for player aids, because like that, a lot of what you're seeing now, I'm not even sure I like. They're trying to make the entry point easier for people,
Mm-hmm.
and it is cool with like Warhammer Underworlds and Blackstone Fortress. I mean, Blackstone Fortress, if you compare it to the Silver Tower, so much easier to get into and play. And they've had time to refine it. But you'll also see that they're doing like the kids version of something characters and stuff like that. And so I think they'll do some of that templatized stuff. I just wonder if their player base is going to really push back on that.
Well, and don't forget, Games Workshop licenses out to Cubicle 7, and there is a very tight leash on what Cubicle 7 can and can't do. So, and Games Workshop, it's ingrained in their nature, and we may see a change in the next 5 to 10 years. We've already seen a very positive change in their pricing structure and their leniency towards like fan sites and product. But
it's been changing a lot in the mobile game space, and in the computer game space. You've got like
hundreds.
Used to just be Dawn of War, and that was all you had.
And now there's tons.
Well,
Yeah.
they had to rein that in because the stuff they licensed in the late 80s and 90s were trash, and so they didn't want to let that happen again.
Yeah. Well, and part of the problem is they have such a distinct. I mean, if you go into a library or you go into a store and you say, I play tabletop miniature games, people don't know what you're talking about. But if you go, oh, I play Warhammer 40K, they go, oh, the little tiny soldiers. So I'm a big Frostgrave. I play Frostgrave. It's one of my favorite. And I did a whole video on this where the entry level to RPGs is miniatures, narrative miniature games like Mordheim, Necromunda, Beastgrave, and all those stuff. Because those are almost like a narrative game that leads you into more and more that dark hole. And what I tell parents is the more you get your kids into either RPGs or miniature based games, they won't have money for drugs. So or board games too. Yeah, so Iron Kingdom's fantabulous game. It's another one I would love. I ran it a couple times. I did get to play in it once or twice, and my God, I enjoyed it. What about Iron Kingdoms influences you now?
Well, I mean, the aesthetic is a big deal. I mean, I love, I'm more of a sci-fi nerd, but I love all of the punk genres, especially steampunk. It's a toss-up between steampunk and cyberpunk, which one's my favorite, but just the aesthetic of all of the pipes and the gears and all of that stuff just grabs me right away. You don't have to work very hard in either of those two genres to get my attention.
Oh my God! If you could hear him and Tex talk about putting gears and chains and shit.
No. That's all Tex. That's all Tex. It's not even me. Because a gear by itself is not going to get me to pick up your book. But if you go for the whole aesthetic, you got me.
Have you seen Tefra, the RPG?
No, I can't say I have.
You should check that one out. I've interviewed the designer of the game. It was Cracked Monocle Games, and they've since changed their name. I don't remember what they changed it to. But he was a Texas guy based out of.
I have seen this one.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
It's really fun, and if you like that steampunk genre fantasy, it's a really good one. And the mechanics are really solid. Uses D12s, one of the few games out there. The only die it uses is a D12, and you have tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4, where 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And so you roll, and depending on what you're doing, whatever tier you hit, that's how much you either critically succeed or how much damage. It's a very neat mechanic and a very positive story about it. It's coming out of this war and everybody's just trying to survive. Elves are elves are not nice. It's almost like Simbaroom in that aspect that the elves are almost like the bad guy. But there's these like feral elves, and they're kind of like sea elves with wings. It's very bizarre. It's I haven't seen anything like it. Definitely check it out if you get a chance. It's a really good game. So
I'll take a look.
yeah, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth your time. They've put out a couple supplements and they've done some other stuff, so it's very cool. So I guess I'm the last MOOC to go, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart, and it's C.J. Carella's Witchcraft. It's on DriveThruRPG for free right now. RK Post is one of the main artists. If that name sounds familiar, it's because if you picked up any World of Darkness book in the 90s, you saw his art. RK Post was he was the man. He did some amazing art. I'm trying to find a good picture here. And all the artists in this book are very similar in style. And of course, now that I want to find a piece of art, I can't find it. But this is produced by Eden Studios, way back in the day, not too far, 2000, October 2000. This is the hardback. It's on DriveThruRPG right now for free. You don't even have to pay anything for it. It's a stat and a skill and a 1d10, so very cyberpunk, if you remember the old Friday Night Firefight. And this game was influential to me because I was in a really rough spot in my life. I had just gotten out of U.S. Customs. I was a federal agent, and I had just gotten out of Customs. My son was born. Of course, the whole Two Towers thing happened, and I was at a very dark place in my life. I was in a horrible marriage, and this game brought me peace, believe it or not. Because this game very much deals with a lot of inner demons. It deals in magic. If you're squeamish or you're not into the black arts, then this is probably not the game for you. But if you're not, if you take it as, okay, this is a role-playing game, and I'm role-playing, a mage, a modern-day magician, then this is a game for you. So if you liked Vampire, but you thought it was too, weird or whatever, this is a little more grounded in reality, except that magic is real. So it's a modern day RPG. Magic is real. There's different types of magicians. And this was in a phase when I was very close to my Native American heritage. And so one of the things in here you can play is you can play a shaman, which is the term for a Native American magician. And so this game just helped me out a lot. And then on top of that, what was neat about it is I had reached out to Eden Studios and I had said, hey, I go to Gen Con every year and I go to DungeonCon, which was a local California, and Pacificon were two of the big conventions in the Bay Area in Northern California. I said, I love your game. I would love to run demos for you. And George Valicos said, sure, why not? And they paid for me to go to Gen Con back in 2001, 2002, 2003. I got Alex Urquhart. He's one of the designers. He's the silent partner with George Valicos to do this game. And it's a neat game. I have all the supplements for it. They did All Flesh Must Be Eaten, if you remember that game. You're muted, NK.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, All Flesh was fantastic. I love that.
If you look in that book, you'll see my name in the credits. I helped playtest. I helped playtest that. They also did Armageddon, which was this at the after the Holocaust. And the Holocaust is basically heaven and hell get into it, and the gates open, and literally all hell breaks loose. So you could play an angel, you could play a demon, you could play a wizard, you could play a vampire, a ghost. So it was taking this game to the next level. What's up, G?
So when you say that's this, so is it a continuity type of thing? So
Yes.
This happened first, then the Armageddon.
Yeah, so this is Witchcraft is first, and then Armageddon is a couple of years down the road, and you can take these characters and put them in Armageddon, and it's the same rule system. All Flesh Must Be Eaten is the same rule system. It's a stat and a skill and a 1d10. You're looking to get a 9 or better. So really cool. They also did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I helped play test. They also did the one with the monkeys. It wasn't. It was.
Not the band, the monkeys.
No, the Planet of the Apes, but it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't called Planet of the Apes. I can't remember the name of it. So I helped play test a couple of these. Did a bunch of adventures. C.J. Corella is a very, very prolific artist, writer, who writes a lot of modern day fiction, fantasy fiction. And so this is based off of his world, and he wrote the all the fluff in here and everything. And then George is also an artist. He did this cover. He's also a huge 40K player and an excellent painter. So yeah, he's really good in Photoshop. He did the layout. It's basically a two-man company, him and Alex.
I must not have the right edition of All Flesh.
Which one do you have?
I think I have 4th.
Oh yeah, there's they also did the Kung Fu. There's quite a few. I've got them up there. I can't see them because it's dark in here and I'm old and blind. But yeah, so this game really influenced me a lot. Really got me through some tough times, and I mean paved the way for me to go to Gen Con a lot. And I mean, he was great. I mean, George Valicos is a super nice guy.
Did you try any of the spells on your ex?
No, she wasn't worth my time. But and that's what's nice about this is they don't go into like, Eye of Newt, Blood of a Vampire, or anything like that. It's just they give you some spells. It's not like D&D Magic. You're not going to fling a fireball. It's almost like let's set his hair on fire and then we can run away. Or let's break the tie rod on his car so he swerves out of control. And so the target numbers to do these spells can sometimes be pretty high. But of course, like any game, there's min-maxing, and you build your character. You don't roll your attributes. You have a certain amount of points, and you build them. And there's psychic powers. There's a bunch of different character classes. There's gifted, lesser gifted. There's a bunch of pre-gens in the book that you can just photocopy, and you can play right out of the book. So it's Bast, which are basically cat people. Stephen King's, what was that? The ones where they were like half cat, half people, the movie. I can't think of the name of it now. But basically, yeah, you're that. Mundanes, so, and this is the same, obviously Buffy the Vampire Hunter was a logical license for them to get a hold of, and they did. And they actually put out a nice collector's edition, which I think I have boxed away because it's a beautiful book. But yeah, I mean, some of the art is just, this guy he's trying to light a cigarette and his lighter, a fire method or demon or whatever comes out of it, so that's the kind of things you can do with magic. And it's just really cool. It's a really neat system. It doesn't get enough attention, I feel. But it was, if you were a big fan of Vampire, this would be the Masquerade. This would be a great, next jump to a more modern game that wasn't so dark and gloomy. You could play it dark and gloomy if you wanted, but you could also play it Buffy the Vampire Hunter, and the player characters are a coven, whether they be mundane or lesser gifted or gifted, and there's pros and cons to playing both, obviously. So in like vampires, you can eventually play a vampire, you can play a ghost. So a lot of neat stuff. Definitely a game I think that was ahead of its time, but is very well done, and it's been around for 20 years now. So that's the one that got me. So
I just grabbed it on drive-through. So
Yeah, it's free. I mean, it's the best price, right? So,
Yeah.
and they came out with a number of expansions. I have another copy. I have the softback copy, which I had spiral bound just because I was flipping through it so much. I didn't want the pages to fall out. And it just happened to be the year that the Star Wars with Ray Parks, Darth Maul, it was after that. It was the next Gen Con, and he was at Gen Con, and he just happened to be sitting there. It was after hours, and if you're part of the crew of Gen Con, you know, like exhibitors and stuff, you could stay in the exhibit hall after all the patrons left. And so I was obviously part of that crew. I was there representing Eden Studios, and I was hanging out, and this little short muscular dude comes up and starts talking to me, and he's got this funny accent. I think he's either Australian or English or New Zealand or something. And he's like, "Oi, mate, what's this game about?" Because I had the Witchcraft game with me. I was just standing there. I just got finished running a demo, and the exhibitor hall had closed. And so he came out, and the little kid that played Jango Fett's son, who turns into Boba Fett, he was there. Of course, he was now a teenager because, you know, it'd been a couple years. So, and they didn't know anything about it. So I'm sitting there explaining role-playing games to Ray Parks, you know, and I didn't know who he was. And then he's like, "Oi, let me give you something." And he pulls out a picture of him and Darth Maul, you know, gear. And he's like, and he signs it. And my buddy Craig, yeah, is a huge Darth Maul fan. So I brought it home and gave it to him. But he signed the cover of my Witchcraft book, which was pretty cool. So he was. I doubt he remembers me. He was 3 sheets to the wind, but he just didn't understand the whole concept of role-playing games, you know. And so I explained it to him, and he was just like, he was so happy because somebody took the time to explain it to him. So,
which is basically his career done as a hobby.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You know, I was like, you know that script you read for Star Wars, you know, and you know how you did all those acrobatics to be Darth Maul. Imagine doing those, but before you do them, you roll dice to see if you can do them. And he went, "Oh, it makes total sense," you know, because no one had ever explained it to him. You know, they just said it's a game, and so that's my little, you know, my little kudos for Witchcraft is, you know, it got me to meet Ray Parks. So, and he was super nice. So, but yeah, so I don't know. Anything else anybody else got? I mean, NK, thanks for picking it up. I mean, I don't make any money off of it, but it's a game that's near and dear to my heart, and I think if you read it, you might enjoy it.
It looks like it would probably be up my alley, especially, you know, given my my inclinations towards different RPGs and like the one I shared last week or last time. And all
Yeah, and the other nice part is it's the setting is just modern day. There's nothing that says you couldn't put it in like steampunk. You know, it would totally work in a Victorian era. You know, like Cthulhu.
I'm okay with modern day stuff. That's all right.
There's not enough games that support modern day.
My honorable mention was going to be the Dresden Files RPG, so and that's modern day. So.
Which one, the original or the Fate?
Fate.
Yeah, the original used fudge, which is Fate Light.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it might have actually been fudge before they actually came up with it.
Is it the 2-book set? Or
well, it was. I only have one of the 2.
That's the fudge version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome game.
Yeah.
I've yet to read those books. I know I need to read them.
He's dropping 2 more this year. One, I think, at the end of the month, and then another in October.
Oh, geez. If you, like I said, I'm a huge modern vampire fan, and there's an author called Scott Siecen, Ciecen, and he wrote a 3-book series called Parliament of Blood. It's probably one of the best modern day vampires books I've ever read. It's a 3-book series. It's a really good series. Yeah, and it's taken from the point of view of this coven of vampires, and they're basically psychic leeches. So they terrorize you, and they don't have to drink blood. They can be fed from your mental emanations and stuff. They just do it because it's fun. And they're like a bunch of sick bastards. And it's this one girl who, you know, basically has to fight them and everything. And it's basically Twilight in a mature theme. And the vampires don't sparkle.
Yeah, you lost me at 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much.
You know, like Does she get all weepy and
No.
dysfunctional?
No, she's actually it's pretty funny because her mom is a police officer and she's walking home from work one night and she hears a noise from a dumpster. So she happens to go look in the dumpster and somebody had thrown away a little girl. And the little girl's name is Dani, Dani, and she's the vampire. She's a vampire as well. And the mom raises her. So it's the first book and a half is this whole tragic of her coming to grips with her powers, because as she's maturing as a young woman, she starts having these urges, and it's kind of a sexual book, like soft porn, but it's not. I mean, I wouldn't mind my 13-year-old reading it. Let me put it.
What vampire book isn't?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
say, what vampire anything isn't at least subtly sexual?
right, and but it's like I said, all the powers are mental. They obfuscate your mind. But when the first human life you take cements you into that world, and so it's all about this covenant trying to get her to make her first kill to become part of their pack. And it's if you have the time to read it, I recommend picking up. It's a really good read. So.
You guys watch the things we do in Shadows?
Oh my God, my wife and I have watched the movie. We love it.
No, the television show.
I haven't seen it, but we saw the original movie, which was great.
The psychic vampire in that, man. That's what you're reminding me of, the psychic vampire there. It's just like so funny.
We're watching Warrior Nun right now on Netflix. I don't know if anybody's. It's really good.
My wife and I have been watching that.
First
It's
episode
fun.
was good. I don't know. I haven't made it past that yet, but
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not going to win any awards or
No,
anything, but
no.
it doesn't try to be anything more than what it is.
Yeah, it's
And it's come to find out it's based on like a graphic novel from the 90s, and it's definitely got that vibe.
yes.
When you definitely see it's got that kind of like, this feels like a 90s concept. But it owns it. It owns it, and it does a pretty good job.
Well,
of it.
we're on episode 9 tonight. We'll probably finish it up tonight.
I forgot what episode we're on. We're pretty close.
It gets a lot darker. It gets a lot darker in episode 8. I'm telling you that right now. It's like, whoa! I didn't expect it to go that way.
I'm all in on that. So
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm enjoying it. My wife's. I think she's okay with it. I don't think she's wild about it, but it's enjoyable. Like you said, it's not going to win any awards. And then there's another one coming out with Charlize Theron. That's on Netflix.
That looks interesting.
That looks very good. And so that doesn't start. I think it's got another month or two before it starts, but we're definitely looking forward to that. So, guys, I think we killed it. What you got there, gkanks?
Not that I was just an idle comment. It doesn't matter.
No, say it. Spit it out.
I've noticed that some of the best Netflix, some of the best stuff made for the streaming services have come from graphic novels, not from books, not from stuff, screenplays, but actually adapting something from a graphic novel.
I'm amazed at how much good content is coming out on Amazon Prime and Netflix, as far as like I'm seeing these movie trailers, and that's how I found out about Warrior Nuns. I was watching movie trailers, just on YouTube, and I saw the trailer and I was like, I've never heard of this. This looks cool. Nuns with guns. I'm in.
Nothing beats The Expanse. I mean,
Yeah.
anything. What they've done with that, just so amazing.
And that's how a miniseries should be done. The people that worked on Game of Thrones need to go watch that, and then go back and remake episodes, seasons 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, because obviously there was some crack involved, and I don't know what happened.
Little known fact about is it James S.A. Corey? Is that the author of the books? I think it's actually two guys that work for George R. R. Martin.
Really?
And he read their first drafts of the book, and also on top of that, The Expanse. The two guys that co-write under that one name. One guy developed the world for a homebrew D&D game.
Is that any good?
It is excellent.
It looks great. I haven't read it myself, but yeah, they developed the world for the Expanse for homebrew D&D before any of the stories were written, and then the other guy actually starts writing the story in the world the other guy was coming up with. So it's very, very near and dear to tabletop stuff.
So, like,
Yeah.
You start out with that show, the very first episode, I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, great, they've got the Paladin, they've got the Brute, where is this going to go? It's just going to be blah. And then very quickly you're like, no, these people are playing deep characters.
Yeah.
And every time Amos touches on an emotion, that look of complete confusion on his face is just so amazing.
Well, they do a great job of showing the strife between like the Belters, the Mars people, and the story that interlocks them all. You know, it's just the actors they got are just nailing it. You know,
it's nuance, which is what life is. You know, there's no
right.
good.
Right. Everything changes. Nothing is static. And what is black today is white tomorrow. And I think that's where the show really shines. Because one minute you're looking at this guy going, you are such a dick. I hope you die. And then the next episode, he's saving everybody. And you're like,
that Ashton character?
Yeah.
Third season, you're just like, I hate this dick.
I haven't seen third season yet, so I have to. My wife keeps getting on me to watch it. So.
But you're not going to like him at the beginning of the third season. By the end of the third season, he's going to be one of your favorite characters.
As a fan of the book series, I was so excited when they announced the TV show, but I was also worried, like anybody would be. And like 15 minutes in, when they flipped the Canterbury, I was like, I'm in. Like they did such a good job capturing this. I'm all in, and it's been such a fantastic ride. And it's only gotten better with Amazon now that they're kind of unleashed from TV, because some of the characters had to really tone it down.
They could really go all in for it.
They could really go all in. And I mean, the UN Secretary General, she's such a filthy mouth person in the books, and it's wonderful. And they tried to hint at that in the earlier seasons, and they just couldn't do it because they were on cable. And once they were unleashed and they gave her the script, God, it was so beautiful. It was wonderful.
That's the Indian woman, right?
Yes.
Yeah. She's a wonderful actress. I mean, she's been in a bunch of different things, and she kills it every time she does. And I thought she was very restrained in season 1 and 2. There's a couple where she dropped an F-bomb, and you're like, what? You know, and I knew that character had more depth because I've got a friend who's really into the novels, and he's like, oh, if they flesh her out like they do in the novels, you're going to be in shock, because she's a pistol. You know, and so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing season 3. I just haven't gotten around to it. But cool. Well, guys, I think we killed it. I know Conrad sounds like he's typing back there.
I would never.
No, of course not. But I hope we can do this again next month. Like I said, maybe some different people. I was trying to get Mr. Wilcox, a.k.a. Zadmar, from Zadmar Publications, but he's in Germany, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning there. So he's like...
Reach out to Bear, see if we can get him on.
I was going to do it. You know what? He wasn't online. He would do it. He's already told me he will. He just he wasn't online when I thought, like everything with my show, it's, oh, wow, it's 5 minutes. Let's do a video. You know, because we're professional here. That's how we like to roll. But Justin, gkanks, Josh, NK, Conrad, thank you guys so much. I hope the people watching have learned something, or at least found something neat, or maybe learned a little bit about us and our craziness and what makes this hobby tick and what brings us so much joy. gkanks, thank you so much for being a subscriber. And this was kind of last minute, so I appreciate you dropping everything and rescheduling to come on. It means a lot. And I appreciate, everything you do for the channel. You've helped out a lot. So thank you so much. NK, Conrad, keep pumping out cool RPG stuff. Where's my airship battles, damn it?
They're there.
Hey, gkanks, ask them to tell you the story of how they forgot to contact me so I could create my monster, because I backed at the level that I should have got to create a monster. But but Tex
man,
dropped the
really?
ball. Yeah. And I had a cool idea for a monster. I had this monster that would come out of a. There's a name for it. I can't remember the scientific term, but there is a name for a psychic phenomenon or ghost that come out of a corner. And what was going to happen is when you go to sleep, if you were like an evil person, this thing would come for you, but it would come out of a corner. So a lot of people in the underground warrens would sleep in round rooms, so there were no corners.
Dude, this that's so dope.
We'll follow up with you.
There's a Japanese short video, a short story video sort of thing. I forget what it's called, but I think the word for it is the looks like cracks, and it's about an apartment that's haunted by a monster that hides in the cracks.
Nice.
Like when this dude moves in, like he finds this like duct tape over literally all the cracks and creases. It's like the space between his fridge and the countertop.
Duct tape.
Like every single drawer, duct taped. All of it, just everything. And he's
Awesome.
like, what the fuck? So he starts taking it off. He starts moving his stuff in, and then weird shit starts happening. Yeah, you have to watch it.
Yeah. Sounds
I don't know if
creepy.
you're gonna find it, but it's appropriate.
Here's the thing: I hate horror. I don't like Lovecraft. I don't like scary movies. Can't stand them. What's wrong with me? Try being 12 years old, and your mom drags you to the theater at midnight to go watch The Exorcist.
Bro, sign me up, man.
And then the next day, going to school and having the science teacher send you to the principal's office because there's claw marks on my arm from where my mom was grabbing me because she was scared in the movie, and so the teacher thought I was being abused. So I had to go to the principal and say, no, my mom, I'm not abused. Everything's great. My mom loves horror movies, but she won't watch them alone. To this day, I'm 53 years old, and I have nightmares.
Is this the one you tell at every gathering? Like, is this the one like everyone gets a couple drinks and they're like, well, when I was 12, I saw The Exorcist and it traumatized me for life. Like, is that like your go-to?
Yes, you can call me a pussy if you like. Just remember, I'm a very large one. I am 6 foot, 250 pounds, and I'm mean.
Mr. Mean, show us on the doll where the demon touched you. Okay.
PG-13. No, it's my wife loves like scary movies and she likes dramas, and it's like she's watching Hannibal, and I'm like nope.
Hands down, that's like easily like my top 3 TV shows. Man, awesome.
Yeah, good.
She says it's really good. She's enjoying it.
It's absolutely fantastic, and
It's been super exciting, so it's good to hear something. Hear from somebody watching it.
It is separate enough from the movies that it doesn't feel like they were treading over what Anthony Hopkins did with the character.
Right.
And
the main actor, I can't remember his name. He's a phenomenal actor. He's played a number. What's his name?
Maz Mikkelsen, I think.
Something like that. Yeah, I know he's a foreigner. He's got that.
Yep.
He's got that funky, weird accent that's kind of hard to duplicate, and he's
Danish.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Are they all mythology, or trying to keep it so you could keep them in the same universe?
The movies and the shows are separate, even though they tread over some of the same characters and stuff like that. There's only, I think, one of the movies they couldn't touch because the rights to it were owned by a different company.
I still want to know what the lambs were saying. That's all. Clarice won't talk. That's my only reference, because I saw that movie and I didn't think that movie was scary. That movie didn't. Silence of the Lambs. It was creepy, in and of itself, to see the depravity that the human mind can.
Which one of the sequels was it where they were eating the guy was eating his own brain?
That's Hannibal. That's the second one.
Yeah. I thought that scene was pretty cool. I thought, because he's all in the kitchen cooking and he's all happy. He's like, well, we're going to eat well tonight, and then he's like.
That's where the show like really nails it, because you get these like little brief snippets of him like needing pieces of meat that you're led to believe are human parts, and he goes through this whole process of cooking and preparing and it looks beautiful, and at the same time, it's horrifying because you know it's a person.
Right. But, you don't think about that when you eat a cow.
Yeah.
So there you go, right? Human, the other white meat.
Yeah.
So, guys, we've been going for, what is that, gkanks?
It's called lawn pig, isn't it?
Lawn pig, that's right, yeah.
Long pig, yeah.
I love it when people get on my lawn because it's an alternative food source. So we've gone just over an hour, like an hour and 20 minutes, actually. So awesome. I hope everybody out there in YouTube land enjoys the rambles that we did. Conrad, NK, gkanks, thank you so much for spending this hour and 20 minutes with me. And let's maybe see if we can do it again next month, eh?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
All right. Everybody in YouTube land, thank you for watching. Everybody have a great night. And as always, peace, love, and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean says, be nice.